When did your baby's oxygen cutoff occur? Did it happen during pregnancy or did it happen during labor and delivery? And why does this matter? If you're watching this video today, know that this question came from a previous video, and if you're watching on TikTok or YouTube, it's going to be the video before this, in which I was talking about if a family has a baby that has suffered an HIE, a hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, brain injury at birth, and they think that the doctors in the hospital is what caused this injury, what can they do if they don't have a lot of resources and they don't want to hire someone like myself, a birth injury lawyer? Like, what can they do? If you have those issues going on, watch the previous video in front of this. But when I shot that video, I had questions offline that went into, well, how is a mother, like, how do we know when this injury may have happened, and why is it important? So I'm going to get into that today. In a lot of these cases, when you are moving forward with litigation and you say that the doctors or the nurses or the hospital is what caused your child to suffer this traumatic brain injury, it wasn't genetics, it wasn't developmental, it was actually medical malpractice on the part of the hospital or the doctors and the nurses, a lot of times what they will do is they will look to blame other things as to the cause of your baby's traumatic brain injury. They will acknowledge, yes, your baby has an HIE injury or has a brain injury, but they're going to try to put the blame on someone else. And the reason they do that is because in a lot of states, when a plaintiff, the person bringing the lawsuit, they have to be able to tie in the defendant as to the cause of the injury or the harm. And so the hospitals and their lawyers, what they will look to do is they will look to blame anything else up the chain. They will look for genetics, they will look for developmental issues, and they will also look to blame another medical professional or another practice. So if, let's say, for example, that this negligence happened during the time of pregnancy, and this was something that was missed by the OBGYN that you were going to at that time, and let's say that this OBGYN and this practice is not connected to the hospital will look to shift that blame. So it's important as a birth injury lawyer that we get a good understanding as to the timing of the injury and what may have caused it. Now, when we're talking to you and when you do an intake evaluation with us, we're going to be asking you certain types of questions because that is how we go about analyzing these critical issues. And I'm going to discuss some of the things that we're going to be asking you about. Now, this list is not exhaustive, but when I'm going through this list, I want you as mom, I want you to be thinking about your experience. And does any of these things, do they line up with what you had going on, okay? So when we talk with you about pregnancy, we're gonna wanna know what was going on during your OB visits. How did everything go? Did your OBGYN, did they voice any concerns about what you had going on during pregnancy? Was there gestational diabetes? Were there other preeclampsia? And were these things happening? And if they were, what actions or what was your OB talking to you about during this time? Did you have any concerns about decreased fetal movement during this time? And if you did, what did you do as a result of the decreased movement? In addition to that, what were you doing? Were there other things that you were partaking in? Like, mom, were you smoking? Were you doing drugs? Any of these types of things, these are difficult conversations, but these are things that we have to have a good understanding about in regards to your pregnancy. How were things going on during your pregnancy? We're going to now fast forward into the hospital. So when you got to the hospital, how did things go on at the hospital? Did you have a pretty uneventful pregnancy? There were no issues on that side for your pregnancy, and you got to the hospital. When they hooked you up on the electronic fetal heart monitor, how were things going for you? Did the doctors or the nurses at the hospital, did they have any concerns when they hooked you up? Did you come into the hospital concerned about decreased fetal movement? When you got hooked up, did the doctors and the nurses pretty much tell you that you had a pretty reassuring fetal heart strip? Was that going on? What happened during labor and delivery? Did your labor and delivery go all the way through? Were there no problems there? Did you have a situation in which you had a stalled labor and delivery? Were the nurses concerned about certain types of things during your labor and delivery? Did the nurses speak to you at all in regards to concerns about readings on the electronic fetal heart monitor? Did a discussion take place about a potential need for an emergency C-section? All of these types of things when you're at the hospital. Oh, and don't let me forget, when your water broke, was there meconium present? And when I mean meconium, what I'm saying is your baby's stool. Was meconium in the fluid? All of these types of things are extremely important. And like I said, there's more, but these types of issues are extremely important when we are analyzing your labor. Now, we're gonna now move to delivery. When delivery occurred, what was going on then? Was your baby discolored? Was your baby floppy? Was the NICU there already? Were there concerns about low APGAR scores? Was there an immediate handoff to the NICU? Did oxygen have to take place? Did your baby need oxygen and resuscitation? Were these things that had to take place? Did your baby need was there a 24-hour ultrasound that was done? And if that ultrasound did happen, what were the readings on that ultrasound? Was there a subsequent MRI that was done? And after that subsequent MRI, did your baby have to, within a certain amount of time, be moved to hypothermia cooling, and then that cooling had to take place? So what I'm hoping that you can see is there are a ton of issues that are out here that we have to analyze to help us understand this issue of timing, to help us understand when did your baby possibly suffer this hypoxic brain injury? Was it during pregnancy? And if it was, what actions can possibly be taken then? Or did it happen on the watch of the hospital during labor and delivery? Did they miss some things? And this is why your baby has suffered this traumatic brain injury. So I hope that what you can see is that a thorough investigation and analysis has to happen with these types of issues. And I think that families deserve to have answers. If they have concerns as to why their baby has this traumatic brain injury, and was it something that the doctors and the nurses in the hospital did, I think that families deserve to get answers for this. And before I close this video out today, I want to make sure that you understand that I've done this for a long time, and I've helped families, but there's been some families also that I have not been able to help. For the people who are watching this and they dealt with me before, and if I couldn't help them, they will be able to tell you that it doesn't end there. My analysis is not the end all be all, because at the end of the day, I want families to be able to get help. I want them to find answers. And if I can't help you, then I'm going to tell you to go and have somebody else to take a look at it. And you keep going until you as a family are satisfied with the answers that you've been given. And that's not only just from a lawyer standpoint, but that's also if you think that you need a second opinion from other doctors in regards to what's going on with your baby. You keep going until you get the answers that you need. All right, that's going to be it for today's longer educational video. I'm Marcus Boston, and I'm one of the childbirth injury lawyers here at Boston Law Group, LLC. And I'll talk with you next time. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.